The Great Seljuq Empire, modern Turkish, Büyük Selçuklu Devleti, Persian, was a medieval Turko-Persian Sunni Muslim empire, originating from the Qynyq branch of Oghuz Turks. The Seljuq Empire controlled a vast area stretching from the Hindu Kush to eastern Anatolia and from Central Asia to the Persian Gulf. From their homelands near the Aral Sea, the Seljuqs advanced first into Khorasan and then into mainland Persia before eventually conquering eastern Anatolia. The Seljuq Empire was founded by Tughril Beg in 1037 after the efforts by the founder of the Seljuk dynasty, Seljuq Beg, in the first quarter of the 11th century. Seljuq Beg's father was in a higher position in the Oghuz Yabgu State, and he gave his name to both the state and the dynasty. The Seljuqs united the fractured political scene of the Eastern Islamic world and played a key role in the First and Second Crusades. Highly Persianized in culture and language, the Seljuqs also played an important role in the development of the Turko-Persian tradition, even exporting Persian culture to Anatolia. The settlement of Turkic tribes in the northwestern peripheral parts of the empire, for the strategic military purpose of fending off invasions from neighboring states, led to the progressive Turkicization of those areas. The apical ancestor of the Seljuqs was their Beg, Seljuk, who was reputed to have served in the Khazar army, under whom, circa 950, they migrated to Qynyq, near the city of Qynyq, where they converted to Islam. The Seljuqs were allied with the Persian Samanid Shahs against the Karakhanids. The Samanids fell to the Karakhanids in Transoxania, 992-999, however, whereafter the Ghaznavids arose. The Seljuqs became involved in this power struggle in the region before establishing their own independent base. Tughril was the grandson of Seljuk and brother of Shugri, under whom the Seljuqs wrested an empire from the Ghaznavids. Initially the Seljuqs were repulsed by Muhammad and retired to Qynyq, but Tughril and Shugri led them to capture Merv and Nishapur, 1037. Later they repeatedly raided and traded territory with his successors across Khorasan and Balkh and even sacked Ghazni in 1037. In 1040 at the Battle of Dandanakan, they decisively defeated Musaddai of the Ghaznavids, forcing him to abandon most of his western territories to the Seljuqs. In 1055, Tughril captured Baghdad from the Shia Buyids under a commission from the Abbasids. Alp-Arslan, the son of Tughril Beg, expanded significantly upon Tughril's holdings by adding Armenia and Georgia in 1064 and invading the Byzantine Empire in 1068. From which he annexed almost all of Anatolia. Arslan's decisive victory at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071 effectively neutralized the Byzantine threat. He authorized his Turkmen generals to carve their own principalities out of formerly Byzantine Anatolia, as Atabugs loyal to him. Within 2 years the Turkmens had established control as far as the Aegean Sea under numerous Begliks, modern Turkish Beyliks, the Seljukids in northeastern Anatolia, Mengujkids in eastern Anatolia, Artukids in southeastern Anatolia, Danishmendis in central Anatolia, Rum Seljuks, Beglik of Suleiman, which later moved to central Anatolia, in western Anatolia, and the Beylik of Tsachas of Smyrna in Izmir, Smyrna, under Alp-Arslan's successor, Malik Shah, and his 2 Persian viziers, Nizam al-Mulk and Taj al-Mulk. The Seljuq state expanded in various directions, to the former Iranian border of the days before the Arab invasion, so that it soon bordered China in the east and the Byzantines in the west. Malik Shah moved the capital from Rait to Isfahan. The Iqta military system and the Nizamiya University at Baghdad were established by Nizam al-Mulk, and the reign of Malik Shah was reckoned the golden age of Great Seljuq. The Abbasid Caliph titled him the Sultan of the East and West in 1087. The assassins, Hashashin, of Hussein I Saber started to become a force during his era, however, and they assassinated many leading figures in his administration. According to many sources these victims included Nizam al-Mulk. The Seljuk power was at its zenith under Malik Shah I, and both the Karakhanids and Ghaznavids had to acknowledge the overlordship of the Seljuqs. The Seljuk dominion was established over the ancient Sasanian domains, in Iran and Iraq, and included Anatolia as well as parts of Central Asia and modern Afghanistan. The Seljuk rule was modeled after the tribal organization common in Turkic and Mongol nomads and resembled a family federation or appanage state. Under this organization, the leading member of the paramount family assigned family members portions of his domains as autonomous appanages. When Malik Shah died in 1092, the empire split as his brother and four sons quarreled over the apportioning of the empire among themselves. Malik Shah was succeeded in Anatolia by Qynyq Arslan I, who founded the Sultanate of Rum, and in Syria by his brother Tutush I. In Persia he was succeeded by his son Muhammad I, whose reign was contested by his other three brothers Bakhtiaryuk in Iraq, Muhammad I in Baghdad, and Ahmad Sanjar in Khorasan. When Tutush I died, his sons Radwin and Dukak inherited Aleppo and Damascus respectively and contested with each other as well, further dividing Syria amongst emirs antagonistic towards each other. In 1118, the third son Ahmad Sanjar took over the empire. His nephew, the son of Muhammad I, did not recognize his claim to the throne, and Muhammad II proclaimed himself sultan and established a capital in Baghdad, until 1131 when he was finally officially deposed by Ahmad Sanjar. Elsewhere in nominal Seljuk territory were the Artukids in northeastern Syria and northern Mesopotamia. They controlled Jerusalem until 1098. The Danizmend dynasty founded a state in eastern Anatolia and northern Syria and contested land with the Sultanate of Rum, and Kurboga exercised independence as the Atabeg of Mosul. During the First Crusade, the fractured states of the Seljuqs were generally more concerned with consolidating their own territories and gaining control of their neighbors than with cooperating against the Crusaders. The Seljuqs easily defeated the untrained People's Crusade arriving in 1096, but they could not stop the progress of the army of the subsequent Prince's Crusade, which took important cities such as Nicaea, Iznik, Iconium, Konya, Caesarea Massacre, Kayseri, and Antioch, Antakya, on its march to Jerusalem, Al-Quds. In 1099 the Crusaders finally captured the Holy Land and set up the first Crusader states. The Seljuqs had already lost Palestine to the Fatimids, who had recaptured it just before its capture by the Crusaders. During this time conflict with the Crusader states was also intermittent, and after the First Crusade increasingly independent Atabugs would frequently ally with the Crusader states against other Atabugs as they vied with each other for territory. At Mosul, Zengi succeeded Kurboga as Atabeg and successfully began the process of consolidating the Atabugs of Syria. In 1144 Zengi captured Edessa, as the county of Edessa had allied itself with the Ottomans against him. This event triggered the launch of the Second Crusade. Nair ad-Din, one of Zengi's sons who succeeded him as Atabeg of Aleppo, created an alliance in the region to oppose the Second Crusade, which landed in 1147. Ahmad Sanjar had to contend with the revolts of Karakanids in Transoxiana, Ghurids in Afghanistan and Qynyqs in modern Kyrgyzstan, as well as the nomadic Karakhatis who invaded the east and captured the eastern Karakanid state. The Karakhatis then defeated the western Karakanids, a vassal of the Seljuqs at Qynyq. The Karakanids turned to their overlord the Seljuqs for help, but at the Battle of Katwan in 1141, Sanjar was decisively defeated. The Seljuk army suffered great losses and Sanjar barely escaped with his life. The prestige of the Seljuqs became greatly diminished, and they lost all his eastern provinces up to the Sirt area, with the vassalage of western Karakanid taken by the Karakhatan. In 1153, the Oghuz Turks rebelled and captured Sanjar. He managed to escape 3 years later but died a year later. Despite several attempts to reunite the Seljuqs by his successors, the Crusades prevented them from regaining their former empire. The Atabegs, such as Zengids and Artukids, were only nominally under the Seljuk Sultan, and generally controlled Syria independently. When Ahmed Sanjar died in 1156, it fractured the empire even further and rendered the Atabugs effectively independent. Khorasani Seljuqs in Khorasan and Transoxiana. Capital, Merv Kermani Seljuqs. Sultanate of Rum, or Seljuqs of Turkey. Capital, Iznik, Nicaea, later Konya, Iconium, Atabuglik of Salbur in Iran, Atabuglik of Uldanis in Iraq and Azerbaijan. Capital Hamad and Atabuglik of Bori in Syria. Capital, Damascus. Atabuglik of Sangi in Al Jazeera, northern Mesopotamia. Capital, Mosul. Turkoman Begliks, Danish Mendis, Artukids, Seljuqids and Mengujkids in Asia Minor. Qyzmshas in Transoxiana, Khwarezm. Capital, Urgench. After the Second Crusade, Nur ad-Din's general Shirkuh, who had established himself in Egypt on Fatimid land, was succeeded by Saladin. In time, Saladin rebelled against Nur ad-Din, and, upon his death, Saladin married his widow and captured most of Syria and created the Ayyubid dynasty. On other fronts, the Kingdom of Georgia began to become a regional power and extended its borders at the expense of Great Seljuq. The same was true during the revival of the Armenian Kingdom of Cilicia under Leo II of Armenia. In Anatolia, the Abbasid Caliph an-Nasir also began to reassert the authority of the Caliph and allied himself with the Qyzmsha Turkish. For a brief period, Tughril III was the Sultan of all Seljuk except for Anatolia. In 1194, however, Tughril was defeated by Turkish, the Shah of Qyzmid Empire, and the Seljuk finally collapsed. Of the former Seljuq Empire, only the Sultanate of Rum in Anatolia remained. As the dynasty declined in the middle of the 13th century, the Mongols invaded Anatolia in the 1260s and divided it into small emirates called the Anatolian Beyliks. Eventually one of these, the Ottoman, would rise to power and conquer the rest. Legacy: the Seljuqs were educated in the service of Muslim courts as slaves or mercenaries. The dynasty brought revival, energy, and reunion to the Islamic civilization hitherto dominated by Arabs and Persians. According to the Seljuqs, they brought to the Muslims fighting spirit and fanatical aggression. The Seljuqs founded universities and were also patrons of art and literature. Their reign is characterized by Persian astronomers such as Omar Khayyam, and the Persian philosopher Al-Ghazali. Under the Seljuqs, New Persian became the language for historical recording, while Arabic language culture shifted from Baghdad to Cairo.